Before we dive in, do me a favor. If you're interested in firearms, modern history, or just how Russia is creating the technologies of the future, hit subscribe and that bell. For me, it's the best motivation to make even more content like this for you. And be sure to write in the comments, what do you think about the new Russian pistol? Are you waiting for it to hit the stores? Your opinion is priceless to me. Now, get comfortable. We're going to dive into a story that doesn't begin in the silence of design bureaus, but on a shooting range, where for decades the same, now familiar, crack has echoed. The crack of the Makarov pistol. And today, we won't just be talking about a hardware review. We'll be talking about a challenge, an attempt to break a vicious cycle, about a pistol that was supposed to become not just another piece of hardware, but a symbol of new thinking. This is the story of the Lebedev Pistol, PL-14, PL-15, PLK. Ready? Let's go. In the history of any great weapons endeavor, there's always a moment when the old, reliable, time-tested thing suddenly hits a wall. The wall of progress, the wall of new requirements, the wall of a changed world. And so the whole collective, the entire industry, bumps its head against this wall and realizes, we can't go on like this. We need a breakthrough. For the Russian firearms school, that wall has been, still is, and oddly enough, for now remains the legendary PM, the Makarov pistol. Created right after the Second World War in the late 40s, it was brilliant for its time. Simple as a hammer, reliable as a Soviet tank. But imagine for a second, we live in a world of smartphones, the Internet of Things, and electric cars, yet in the holster of our special forces, patrol police officer or army officer is a product whose concept was born when your grandfathers were children. Absurd? Partly. But that was the reality. The paradox is that all attempts to replace it, the famous Grach, PIA, the upgraded PMME, either remained in the shadow of the older brother or stayed in niche units. The system resisted. Habit, conservatism, colossal stockpiles in warehouses, millions of reasons. And then, in 2014, at the Kalashnikov concern, which itself, after a long stagnation, began to wake up like a bear after hibernation, an initiative was born. Not a top-down directive to make a new pistol, but an internal drive. The idea belongs to a man with a famous gunsmith surname, Dmitry Lebedev, a student of Yefim Kadyrov, the very one whose sport pistols in the 80s and 90s crushed everyone in international competitions. This is an important point. This isn't a techie from the plow. This is a man raised in the culture of high precision, ergonomics, working for results in conditions of fierce competition. And he takes it upon himself from scratch, from a blank sheet, to start drawing the future. He doesn't lock himself in the design bureau. He goes to those for whom a pistol is an extension of the hand. To practical shooting sportsmen who, in fractions of a second draw, disengage the safety, fire, change magazines. Feel the weapon with their skin. And he goes to professionals from the FSB, to those for whom the pistol is the last argument, working in tight spaces, in cars, in any weather after being dropped in mud and snow. He creates a pistol through dialogue. That was the key. And already in September 2014, just a few months later, a prototype, still faceless PL-14, Lebedev pistol, model 2014, goes onto the test bench. The ambitions were grand. Not just to make it like theirs, but to create a universal modular system. What does that mean? Imagine one basic skeleton, a frame, a trigger mechanism. And to it, you can attach a long barrel for sport, a short one for concealed carry, a threaded one for a suppressor for special operations. One weapon, many faces. And all of this for the most widespread pistol cartridge in the world, 9x19 Parabellum. Not our native 9x18 from the PM, but specifically the NATO standard. A hard-hitting, powerful round with a huge selection of bullets. It was a challenge to themselves. We are making a world-class weapon for a world-class cartridge. 2 years of refinement, polishing. And at the Army 2016 forum, the world saw not just a pistol. It saw a predator, the PL-15. It was unlike the angular Makarov, unlike the blocky Glock. It was a streamlined shape with smooth transitions with a low-bore axis relative to the hand. This isn't designed for beauty's sake. This is aerodynamics for rapid fire. It grabbed your attention immediately. Then its younger brother appeared, the PLK, the compact. Even shorter, even more tapered, for concealed carry. And in 2019, a sport version, the SP1, for practical shooting competitions, where every thousandth of a second counts. Let's step back for a second and talk about economics and strategy. Why would Kalashnikov, a giant known for rifles and machine guns, dive into the complex, conservative world of pistols? The answer is the market and image. The global small arms market is an ocean of money. Police, armies, private security firms all over the world. But you can't break into that with a revamp of a 70-year-old design. You need a fresh, bright, technological product. The PL-15 became that calling card. It shouted, "Look, Kalashnikov isn't just about reliable classics. It's about innovation, about design, about the future." Powerful PR move. And the domestic market? Re-equipping security forces is a state order for tens, if not hundreds of thousands of units. Contracts for years. That's stability for the plant. That's jobs. That's technological development. Now let's look inside. What's so special about this PLK, which is now considered the most promising model? The numbers are dry, of course, but they say a lot. Weight, 720 grams without cartridges, lighter than many analogs. Length, just 18 centimeters, easy to conceal. A barrel, 92 millimeters. But the main thing, the cartridge. 9 by 19. And not just any, but our Russian ultra-high-powered 7N21. These cartridges can pierce body armor. And the pistol's barrel is guaranteed to withstand 10,000 of such shots. 10,000. That's a huge service life. Imagine how much training that is. The design, that's a whole other story. Barrel tilt locking like the same legendary TT or the Colt 1911. Proven scheme, but the execution modern. Frame from an aluminum alloy, but a polymer one is already in the works, cheaper and lighter. Slide from steel. And here's the first feature that made lefties love it, and I'm one of them, by the way. All controls are ambidextrous. The safety, the magazine release button, the slide stop. Press from either side, get the result. This attention to detail, which was so lacking in the same PM. The striker is concealed, the trigger single action only. That means before the first shot, you manually cock the striker by racking the slide. Then after each shot, it cocks itself automatically. The trigger pull is crisp, predictable. And another genius little detail, all these buttons and levers are recessed into the frame, so nothing snags during a fast draw from the holster. This is the thinking of a practical shooter. The magazine holds 16 rounds for the full-size model and 14 for the compact PLK. Almost twice as much as the PM. And the grip is thin, only 28 millimeters. It fits in the hand like a glove. And at the bottom of the PLK, there are special cutouts to get a firm grip on the magazine during a reload. Ergonomics at its best. But, friends, as they say, no rose without a thorn. And here we come to the most painful part. The pistol is beautiful, smart, modern. It was adopted by the Ministry of Internal Affairs, the FSB Rosgvardia. But where is it? Why don't we see it en masse in the news, on the belts of patrol officers? Why does the morally obsolete Makarov still reign? The answer, system inertia. To replace hundreds of thousands of pistols, you don't just need to release a new model. You need to retool production, retrain thousands of instructors and millions of shooters, procure new cartridges, new holsters, new spare parts. These are gigantic costs and gigantic organizational work. And in conditions where the budget is allocated for other needs, this process drags on agonizingly slowly. This, by the way, is a worldwide problem. Armies and police forces all over the world are conservative. And what about us, ordinary citizens? Are we waiting for our chance to hold this marvel of engineering? Here the story is downright dramatic. Civilian versions exist, but they are like a mirage. First, the deactivated PLK. All parts allowing it to fire live rounds are removed from the combat pistol, and it's converted for blank cartridges of 10 by 31 caliber. The price? From 200,000 rubles. That's a collector's item for enthusiasts, not for range shooting. Second, an airsoft copy from some Taiwanese company. A plastic toy for about 15,000 that shoots plastic pellets. Well, for airsoft games, maybe an option. But it barely conveys the spirit of the original. And the most desired, and the most ghostly version, the Lebedev Traumatic Pistol, the so-called LLR weapon of limited lethality. It was announced back in 2021. And silence is not in stores at all. Rumors circulate that single specimens surface on the secondary market at completely astronomical prices, over 1 million rubles. That's not a price anymore. It's a cry of desperation from collectors. Why is that? Here, bureaucracy and legislation kick in again. The certification of civilian firearms in Russia is a complex and lengthy process, especially for such a new and complex system. Perhaps Kalashnikov simply doesn't see much commercial sense in it, focusing on state orders. Or maybe there are some technical intricacies. But the fact remains. For us, civilians, the PL-15 remains an unattainable dream for now, a picture on the internet, and a topic for heated debates on forums. So what do we have in the end? A brilliant piece of engineering work? Absolutely. A breakthrough in design and ergonomics? Undoubtedly. A pistol that can be proudly placed alongside the best examples from Glock, Sig Sauer, or HK. 100%. But we also have a clear example of how even the best technology runs into the wall of reality. Budget constraints, bureaucratic red tape, the power of habit. The Lebedev pistol is not just a piece of metal. It's a statement that the Russian firearms school is alive, that it can learn, adapt, and create competitive products in the 21st century. It has already changed the landscape, forcing people to talk about it. Yes, it hasn't yet won the war with the Makarov in our arsenals, but it has already won the war in people's minds. It showed that something different is possible, and in that lies its main victory. And I want to finish with a question for you, friends. When do you think we will finally see the PL-15 not only at exhibitions, but in the holsters of our police officers on city streets? And, most importantly, will we live to see the day when we can go to a store and buy its civilian version for sport shooting? Or will this story remain the most beautiful yet inaccessible project? Write your thoughts, predictions, opinions in the comments. Let's argue, let's discuss. And if this deep dive was interesting to you, if you want to keep breaking down topics like this with me, support the channel with a subscription and a like. It truly is very important for the channel's growth.